Hello, Stoics. Have you ever wondered what your life would look like if, just for 1 week, you chose to live with full intention? Not halfway. Not distracted. But completely present. 1 week where you wake up with purpose, move with discipline, and honor the time that usually slips through your fingers. Sounds dramatic? I thought so too. Until I did it. And what followed wasn't just change, it was transformation. In this video, I'll share with you 7 simple yet powerful habits that I adopted for just 7 days. Habits that didn't just tweak the edges of my life, but reshaped my mindset, my energy, my peace. These are not abstract concepts. They are real actions, born from discomfort, resistance, and eventually breakthrough. I'm not here to sell you perfection. I'm here to walk with you through a week that might just wake up your soul. So if you've been waiting for a sign to change, this is it. Grab your journal. Silence the noise. And let's begin. Lesson number 1. Waking up early was the first habit that shattered everything I believed about my own limitations. I used to think mornings belonged to the overachievers, the early risers, the people who somehow had more willpower than I ever could. My bed was my sanctuary. The snooze button was my escape. I started my days late, rushing through routines, always behind, always breathless. But something in me knew that if I could own my morning, I could reclaim my life. So I made a decision. Not a perfect one, not a heroic one, but a real one. I set my alarm for 5 a.m. and promised myself I would rise, no matter how heavy my eyes felt. The first day, my body protested. The second day, my mind resisted. But by the third morning, something shifted. I stepped out onto my balcony and watched the sun spill over the horizon. It was quiet. Still. Pure. No notifications. No noise. Just me and the sky, painting its silent masterpiece. That moment rewired me. I began to understand why Marcus Aurelius rose before the world. It was not just to be productive. It was to connect. To hear his own thoughts before the world shouted its demands. I used those early hours to stretch my body, to breathe in peace, and to write down what I wanted from the day, not what the world expected of me. And slowly, the chaos melted. I was no longer reacting to life. I was choosing how to live it. I stopped rushing through my mornings. I began walking into them. The sunrises became my companions, my proof that beauty waits for those who wake up to it. Waking up early gave me more than time. It gave me power. The kind of power that comes from presence. And yes, there were days when I slipped. Days when my bed whispered louder than my purpose. But even on those days, I knew what was possible. I had seen it. Felt it. Lived it. And I always returned. Because once you taste that kind of stillness, that kind of ownership over your life, you never really forget it. So if you want a habit that grounds you, that humbles you, that elevates you without needing applause, start here. Wake up early. Not to prove anything to anyone. But to finally meet the version of yourself that waits on the other side of comfort. The version that is calm. Focused. And quietly unstoppable. Lesson number 2. Daily exercise was the habit that lit a fire inside me. I used to find every excuse in the book to avoid working out. I was tired, I was busy, I would start tomorrow. But there came a moment when I could no longer lie to myself. My energy was low, my focus scattered, and my mind clouded by inertia. So I made a decision. For 1 week, I would move my body every single day, no matter what. I started with just 20 minutes. Nothing intense, just enough to shake off the stillness. Some mornings it was light stretching, other times a short jog or a basic bodyweight routine. I didn't aim for perfection. I aimed for honesty. The first few days were hard. My body resisted and my old habits tried to creep back in. But by the 4th day, something began to change. I woke up feeling lighter, not just in my body but in my spirit. My mood began to lift. I smiled more. I complained less. I felt grounded again. It was no longer just about fitness. It became a ritual of self-respect. A form of silent rebellion against laziness and doubt. One morning I remember jogging as the sun rose, the cold air filling my lungs, and I felt a clarity I hadn't felt in years. No distractions, no noise, just the rhythm of my breath and the pounding of my feet. That moment showed me something powerful. Moving your body moves your mind. It clears the fog. It awakens strength you forgot you had. I even tried yoga, something I had always dismissed. I discovered stillness inside movement. Breath, balance, focus. It wasn't just exercise anymore. It was alignment. It was peace. What began as a chore became a gift I gave myself every single day. Daily exercise taught me that you don't wait for motivation. You build discipline through action. You show up even when you don't feel like it. Especially then. If you're lost, if you're anxious, if you feel stuck in your head, start with your body. Get up. Move. Sweat. Feel the resistance, then break through it. You are not weak. You are not lazy. You are simply disconnected. And movement is the bridge that brings you back to yourself. It is not about sculpting the perfect body. It is about reclaiming your power, one step, one rep, one breath at a time. Start today. Not for the mirror. Not for anyone else. But because your mind, your soul, your spirit deserve a vessel that is awake and alive. This is how the Stoic prepares for the day. Not with noise, but with movement. Not for vanity, but for virtue. Daily exercise is not optional if you want to live fully. It is your anchor, your fire, your proof that you are still in the fight. Lesson number 3. Journaling became the mirror I never knew I needed. I always thought journaling was for the overly reflective, the people with time to spare, the poets and the thinkers. But one quiet evening, I sat down with nothing but a pen and an old notebook and decided to just write. No pressure. No format. Just thoughts. At first, I did not know what to say. The blank page stared at me like a stranger waiting for a confession. So I began with the simplest truth I could find. I wrote how I felt. What happened that day. What I wished I had done differently. And to my surprise, something inside me unlocked. Thoughts I had been carrying like heavy stones started flowing out onto the page. And with every sentence, I felt lighter. Journaling became a way to see myself clearly, without judgment, without noise. Each night I would sit for 10 minutes and release what my mind had collected. Fears, hopes, frustrations, little victories. The page accepted them all. It did not argue. It did not compare. It just listened. And in that quiet space, I discovered patterns. I saw the same self-doubts reappear, the same thoughts looping, and for the first time, I began to confront them. One night I wrote about a failure that had haunted me for weeks. As the ink dried, I realized it had far less power than I imagined. Another night I wrote about a small moment of kindness I had experienced and it brought me to tears. The practice of journaling grounded me in gratitude. I started a section to write 3 things I was thankful for every day. Some days it was just the warmth of coffee or a stranger's smile. But those moments were real. And I began to realize that my life was filled with beauty I had been too distracted to notice. Journaling also helped me prepare. I would write what I wanted the next day to look like. What mindset I needed. What actions I would take. And slowly, I started to live more deliberately. More consciously. More stoic. It became a sacred ritual. A few minutes with myself, for myself. No expectations, no performance, just honesty. If you have never journaled before, do not overthink it. You are not writing a masterpiece. You are learning to speak to yourself. You are learning to listen. The greatest battles are fought inside your mind, and a journal gives you a map to navigate that terrain. You do not need the perfect words. You just need to show up and begin. One page at a time, one truth at a time. This habit, though quiet and private, will give you a kind of strength that nothing else can. Because when you know yourself deeply, you cannot be shaken easily. And that is the kind of power Stoicism is built on. Lesson number 4. Mindful eating brought me back into my body in a way I did not expect. I used to eat like most people do, distracted and disconnected, scrolling through my phone or watching something in the background while stuffing food into my mouth. I never paid attention. I was always in a rush. It was just fuel, something to get over with. But when I decided to practice mindful eating for a week, everything changed. I cleared a space at my table. I turned off every screen. I sat with my plate like it was something sacred, because in truth, it was. The first meal I ate this way felt awkward. The silence was loud. I felt impatient. But then something beautiful happened. I actually tasted my food. Not just with my tongue, but with my attention. The textures, the warmth, the subtle flavors I had missed for years all came alive. Each bite became a conversation with the present moment. I began to notice when I was full. I began to eat slower. And most of all, I began to appreciate the act of nourishing myself. One morning, I had a bowl of oatmeal. Nothing fancy. But I ate it with no distractions, just focused on the warmth, the softness, the sweetness of the honey I drizzled over it. And for the first time, that simple bowl became a moment of peace. I was not just feeding my body. I was calming my mind. This habit taught me to slow down, to honor what I consume, to realize that every meal is a chance to care for myself. I also became more aware of why I was eating. I used to reach for snacks when I was bored or stressed. But through mindfulness, I paused and asked myself if I was truly hungry or just trying to avoid something. That pause became powerful. It gave me control. I started choosing herbal tea instead of sugar. A walk instead of chips. That small moment of awareness created a ripple effect that influenced the rest of my day. My digestion improved. My mood stabilized. I felt lighter, not just in body, but in spirit. There is a Stoic lesson here. Food, like everything in life, must be approached with intention. Mindless consumption leads to chaos. But presence, even in something as ordinary as eating, becomes a form of discipline. A form of gratitude. When you eat with awareness, you are not just feeding your body. You are training your soul to recognize the beauty in small moments. You are learning to listen to your needs without being ruled by them. You are practicing control without cruelty, presence without pressure. If you have never tried it, I urge you to take one meal today and eat in silence. No distractions. Just you and the food. Taste every bite. Breathe between spoonfuls. Honor what is in front of you. This small act will change your relationship with hunger, with pleasure, and with life itself. Lesson number 5. Limiting screen time revealed how much of my life I was unknowingly giving away. I never realized how often I reached for my phone until I decided to set boundaries. It had become a reflex, a distraction, a digital escape from silence. I would scroll through feeds that added nothing to my soul, binge shows I barely remembered, and check messages like my worth depended on replies. So I made a commitment. 1 hour of non-essential screen time per day. No more. And on day 1, I felt the withdrawal. My hands kept reaching, but I had nothing to grab. In that empty space, I felt uncomfortable. Restless. But then something powerful happened. I started to see. I saw how much time I was wasting. I saw how many moments I had traded for cheap dopamine. But more importantly, I saw what I had been missing. I picked up a book I had abandoned months ago. I started drawing again. I cooked a new recipe from scratch and actually enjoyed the process. One evening, instead of watching another episode, I went for a walk. The air was cool. The trees swayed in rhythm with the wind. The sky had shades I had forgotten existed. And in that walk, I felt more alive than any screen had made me feel in years. My sleep improved. I stopped staring at a glowing rectangle until my mind was fried. I replaced that habit with reading and journaling. And for the first time in months, I felt rested when I woke up. My dreams returned. My thoughts slowed down. I began to enjoy the quiet again. The mental clarity that came from fewer distractions was priceless. I became more present in conversations. More focused on work. More attuned to my own emotions. The constant noise had numbed me, and in its absence, I began to feel again. I was no longer reacting to every ping and buzz. I was choosing how to spend my time. That simple shift in attention changed everything. Limiting screen time is not about rejecting technology. It is about reclaiming control. It is about asking yourself, what am I really escaping when I reach for this device? And more importantly, what am I missing? If you feel scattered, anxious, or unfulfilled, look at how often you reach for your screen. Then look at how you feel afterward. Choose presence over pixels. Choose depth over distraction. Because life is not found in your notifications. It is found in the still moments, the slow days, the quiet clarity that returns when you step away and remember who you are without a screen in your hand. Lesson number 6. Rediscovering hobbies reminded me that joy can be simple and fulfillment does not always require a grand plan. When I limited my screen time, I did not expect the sudden wave of stillness that followed. The hours that were once swallowed by meaningless scrolling were now open, quiet, and unfamiliar. At first, I felt lost. What do I do now? Where does my mind go when the noise stops? That space, that silence, became the doorway back to forgotten parts of myself. I found an old sketchbook tucked beneath a pile of unused notebooks. The pages were yellowed, the spine cracked, but the moment I touched pencil to paper again, something stirred inside me. I drew without purpose. Just lines, shapes, faces, fragments of imagination. And for the first time in what felt like years, I felt playful. I felt alive. Then came the books I had promised myself I would read. The ones gathering dust, filled with wisdom waiting to be claimed. I began to read not to impress or check a box, but to nourish my thoughts. To wander into ideas. To fall in love with silence. Cooking became a canvas. I tried new recipes, burned a few, perfected others, and slowly turned my kitchen into a space of creativity. One quiet afternoon, I sat by the window with a cup of tea and a notebook. I wrote down thoughts, not to post, not to share, but just to feel them more clearly. That moment was more healing than any therapy session. These hobbies, these simple acts of being present with what I enjoy, brought back a sense of connection to myself that I had long buried under obligations and deadlines. It reminded me that life is not always about chasing something. Sometimes it is about returning to what once made you feel whole. In Stoic practice, leisure is not the absence of responsibility. It is the cultivation of the soul. It is the space where we breathe, create, reflect. I learned that when you give your mind something meaningful to play with, you no longer need distractions to survive the day. You start to look forward to time alone. You begin to see yourself not as a consumer of noise, but as a creator of moments. If you feel stuck, restless, or disconnected, revisit what once made you feel free. Open that instrument case. Dust off the paints. Write something. Cook something. Build something. The point is not perfection. The point is presence. Hobbies are not a waste of time. They are a return to self. A reminder that within you still lives a curious, creative, expressive soul. All it needs is a little space and a little silence to come alive again. Lesson number 7. Creating a night routine for peace and recovery became the final habit that quietly completed the transformation. I used to let my nights slip into chaos, scrolling on my phone until my eyes hurt or watching shows until I passed out on the couch. I thought that was relaxation, but it was just escape. 1 week of a calm, structured nighttime routine proved how wrong I was. I began ending each day with intention. I turned off my screens an hour before bed, replaced them with quiet reflection or a book, and dimmed the lights to let my mind unwind. I kept a small gratitude journal beside my bed, where I wrote 3 things I was thankful for before I closed my eyes. This small act created a sense of closure for each day, no matter how chaotic it had been. I also made it a habit to prepare for tomorrow before I slept. I laid out my clothes, made a quick to-do list, and cleared my space. These small steps gave me a sense of control and peace. One night I remember lighting a candle, sipping warm tea, and just sitting in silence for 10 minutes. That moment felt sacred. No noise, no pressure, just a sense of being. That kind of presence used to feel impossible in the rush of life, but this routine made it a daily ritual. Creating a peaceful night routine did more than improve my sleep. It grounded me. It reminded me that I deserved rest, not just sleep. That I could end each day with gentleness and begin the next with clarity. It taught me to treat rest not as a reward but as a necessity. And in doing so, I gave myself permission to heal. If these habits spark something in you, remember this: change doesn't require a lifetime, sometimes it only takes a week of intention. Try one habit. Let it breathe. Let it lead you. You're not here to stay the same, you're here to grow, to evolve, to rise. And if this video brought you value, subscribe to Stoic Legacy to walk this path with me. Stay grounded. Stay focused. Stay stoic and build your stoic legacy.